Good afternoon. I'm Chris McKendry. The ESPN Network's coverage of Michael Jordan's retirement announcement continues. One reminder, coming up at 2 o'clock Eastern, ESPN News starts the marathon, 24 hours of Michael Jordan. At this point, I'd like to send it out to Dan Patrick, anchoring our coverage in Chicago. Good morning, Dan.
Good morning, Chris. For the second time in a little more than 5 years, Michael Jordan is choosing to walk away from the NBA. Now it looks like he's going to be walking away for good. Joining me, our NBA insider, David Aldridge. David, when you look at what this means, not only to the NBA, but also to the Chicago Bulls, how did Michael come with this decision? He took a lot of time to make this decision. What has transpired in the last couple of months?
Well, I think one of the main things was looking at the collective bargaining negotiations, seeing where that was going to go, and seeing if the Bulls had any realistic shot of re-signing Scottie Pippen. And I think what Michael realized was that even though the Bulls could offer Scottie Pippen more money than anybody else, it wasn't going to be the type of money that Scottie Pippen probably deserves at this point in his career. So I think he made the decision then, okay, I probably should walk away. A number of people tried to talk him out of it. Nike chairman Phil Knight, I'm told, flew to Chicago on Saturday and spent a day with Jordan on Sunday trying to talk him out of this decision. But in the end, Michael decided that it was just too much. He had to go. He started informing people Sunday night. Monday, he called a lot of his teammates, a couple of former teammates he got on the telephone, told them that he was planning to go to California to play golf from January 18th to the 25th, and left it at that. When they got off the phone, they realized what he had just told them.
Well, he's supposed to play with Tiger Woods in the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. That's the first week of February.
Right.
That was the first week of the NBA season. So you got a feeling, and even his close friends had told me, he's playing golf. That's all he's thinking about, is playing golf. So I think we were in a state of denial, just like this city is. Yeah. You just can't believe that somebody would go out on top. We're not used to athletes doing that.
No, we're not.
And here's a guy who hit the last shot, won a title, was the MVP, and he says, that's it, I'll step down.
I think people always wanted to talk themselves into it from the simple standpoint of his competitiveness. They didn't think a guy this competitive would walk away at any point in his career. We know that this guy is a different breed when it comes to winning and success. I think a lot of people felt like, well, he'll talk himself into going. But you're absolutely right. Everything that I was told all summer was that this guy is not working out. You know, he has his own personal trainer. He was not working out with his personal trainer, Tim Grover. He was just playing golf, and that is not what Michael Jordan does when he's getting ready to play basketball.
What's this mean now with the lockout? We hope to hear from the commissioner, David Stern, who is at the press conference a little bit later on this morning. But what does this mean to the league, I guess, nationwide? Because you look at this team, you look at this league, and you say, we've just gotten through with the lockout. The Bulls aren't going to be the Bulls anymore. They're not going to be that drawing card. So what does Michael's absence mean now?
Well, I think what it does mean, Dan, is that this season is officially now a wash for the NBA. I think there was some hope that if Jordan were to come back, the league could kind of pretend that this was a normal season, the Bulls would win a championship, and everything would be okay. But now, obviously, this league is in transition. I think that the golden age of the NBA, starting in 1978 and 79 with the drafting of Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, going all the way through the 80s and all the way to today, is over. You know, that great 19-year run that this league had of unparalleled success, of worldwide recognition, of worldwide acceptance, incredible financial windfalls for everybody, is over. And it's going to be a different NBA, maybe with a different set of realities.
From a Chicago Bulls fan standpoint, this probably looks like a televised funeral behind me. It's a wake. You get that feeling when you walked in here to the United Center. What are the Bulls going to do now? What does this mean to Scottie? Is it a domino effect that this affects Scottie,
Yeah.
It affects Dennis?
Oh, I think there's no question that Scottie is going to take off now. I mean, it's either going to be Houston or probably even the Lakers have a chance of doing something. But, you know, the dominoes fall now. Obviously, Michael Jordan couldn't win without Scottie Pippen. Scottie Pippen can't win without Michael Jordan. So I think everybody starts going. You're going to see Steve Kerr go somewhere else. You're going to see Luke Longley probably wind up in Phoenix. So the Bulls, I think, Dan, actually relish this. I think they've been looking forward to this for the last 5 or 6 years, because I think Jerry Krause, in all candor, wants to prove that he can build a championship team without Jordan and Pippen. He's always kind of not gotten enough credit for building the championship teams he did build because Jordan was already there when he got there.
It's amazing, though. It's almost a sick mentality when you consider that we want to disband this.
Yeah.
We want to start over.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, let's keep Phil Jackson on board, which probably, if they would have kept Phil on board or got him to come back, do you think Michael would have come back?
Absolutely. I mean, I think there's no question that if Phil Jackson stays, everybody else stays, because the players like playing for Phil. They like the way he handled things. He let them have a certain amount of latitude. And I think if Phil Jackson weren't so physically disgusted and upset with the way things were handled here, he would have stayed here. Fact of the matter is, for all the platitudes that everybody said at the end, Phil Jackson was sick of being here and didn't want to be here anymore.
Get a lot of people coming up this morning who have covered the Bulls for quite some time, and they will tell you, well, can you put a parallel on this? Well, there is nobody like Michael Jordan, so how can you put a parallel on the news that this is creating? You have the greatest basketball player, maybe the greatest athlete we've ever seen, announcing his retirement and going out on top. I spent some time with Jim Brown yesterday, the great Cleveland Browns running back, and he said the great ones know when it's time to retire. But even then, that's not enough to say, I'll retire.
That's right. A lot of, and we've seen the sports world's littered with people who stayed a year too long. So is the music world, so is the political world. Most people don't have that sense of timing, exquisite sense of timing that I think Michael Jordan has to walk away now before he starts to decline in ways that are visible to everybody. I think Jordan's already started to decline, but only in ways that he can tell. Only in imperceptible things that he can tell about how he shoots the ball or how tired he is, how fatigued he is after games. I think if he had stayed another year or two, it might have started to become visible to other people. And I think Michael Jordan is much too proud an individual to ever let anybody question his game.
Well, it's almost like Wayne Gretzky. He finishes second in the NHL in scoring last year, and people say, well, he's not the great one anymore.
Yeah.
Michael coming back and averaging 19 points a game and not winning a title is not good enough for the fans' perspective and certainly from Michael's.
No, I don't think so. And I think everybody understood that. And I think, again, that's one of the reasons why I think Michael Jordan did this, because Michael Jordan realizes that the one person that can beat Michael Jordan is Michael Jordan because he can't live up to what he has always been. And I think he's a human being. There were going to be signs of deterioration in his game over the next 3 or 4 years. I think he could have masked them maybe for another year or two, and the Bulls probably would have won another 2 championships because he's so mentally tough and because Scottie Pippen's so mentally tough. But the fact of the matter is, it was starting to become, I think, more and more difficult for Michael Jordan to get ready to be Michael Jordan night in and night out. I think that was starting to wear on him a little bit.
I think this is the first time we've been fortunate to cover his 6 titles. And this was the first time back in June where I looked at him and I saw a tired star.
Yeah.
It's almost like he had gotten to the point where I can't keep doing this anymore.
Yeah.
I'm tired. And I don't know if that's what it was, that he couldn't challenge himself, because that's what he did. Every year he would challenge himself with something else. He can't challenge himself anymore.
I think, Dan, the Indiana series, the conference final with Indiana, that to me really, I think if you were really watching that series, you saw for the first time that I had ever seen during this championship run of the Bulls not sure of themselves. I think the Pacers pushed them to places they had never been before. And I think if you ask them in moments of candor, they don't really know how they won that series. They just kind of gutted it out, and they got some breaks. I think Indiana showed them this is going to be tougher than we thought. You know, I think in a lot of ways the finals was easier for them than the conference finals.
Yes, and you know they didn't want to take that to a 7th game in Utah and try to win it there. But that's why you look at the scenario and you say Michael he wrote his own ending, and very few athletes get the opportunity to do that. I was looking at this today thinking Babe Ruth for the first 50 years of this century, Michael Jordan the last 50 years, if you're going to recognize and remember 2 athletes. Do you agree?
I think, I've always said, I have a short list, Dan, of the athletes of our time who did more than just be athletes, who transcended their sport. There's 3 names on the list: Babe Ruth, Muhammad Ali, Michael Jordan. That's the end of the list. I think those 3 guys were bigger not only than their sport, because there's been some others who've been bigger than their sport, but really were cultural icons of their time that you would list with presidents, that you would list with people who changed the world of music, who changed people's lives, that you would list with civil rights leaders and activists. I think those 3 people are on that list of people in this century who had that kind of impact. And that's really it from athletics.
We're waiting for Michael to show up for his press conference. He has asked that there only be a couple people up on the dais with him. His wife, Juanita, Commissioner Stern is here, and also Jerry Reinsdorf, who owns the Bulls. I know that Michael's agent, David Falk, is here. There are a couple of his teammates here, but they had a little send-off for Michael earlier this week, didn't they?
Yeah, there was a couple of things, actually. A private thing for just the members of the team last year, and then last night they had sort of a roast card game, whatever you want to call it. at a local restaurant here, and you had a number of people show up, like Richard Dent, who's a very good friend of Michael Jordan's, the former Chicago Bears defensive end, some friends of Michael's who are from Nike and from other places, people that he's known over the years. And I think it was kind of a more relaxed atmosphere last night, kind of a remembrance thing, not necessarily so much about, you know, you're going to retire tomorrow, isn't it terrible? It was much more of a kind of fun thing, I think, where they got together and really kind of shared some moments and some special times that they've had together.
Let me go with the conspiracy theory here. Michael sits down for a year. I guess I'm in a little bit of denial myself, but does he sit down? Does he reassess? Would he do something else and maybe come back?
I think, I'm going to say this again, I think anybody who tells you with any certainty what Michael Jordan is going to do is lying to you, flat out, or doesn't know what the heck they're talking about, because Michael Jordan is a guy that has always kind of pushed the envelope. Did anybody really think Michael Jordan was going to go play baseball? Did anybody really think that that was going to happen? But it did happen. And so I will never say never when it comes to Michael Jordan. I think he's probably retired for good, but I could see very easily in a year and a half him saying, you know, yeah, I could try out for the Nike tour or something like that, or play golf and see how good I could be, but nothing really lights me up like basketball. I mean, I could see that. I'm not saying that's likely or even, you know, remotely likely, but I could see it. Nothing would surprise me with this guy.
All right. Our coverage of Michael Jordan's retirement speech will continue throughout the morning. For David Aldridge, I'm Dan Patrick. Let's send it back to you, Chris.
Dan and David, thank you. We'll be back to you in just minutes when he makes his announcement official. So, how many people want to be like Mike now? 35, rich, almost retired, and ready to golf. But it's not like he can just disappear. He's still 6'6", and he's recognized by millions all over the world. His life will have challenges. Phil Jackson, Jordan's old coach, said he personally is excited for his next stage, his life without basketball. As Kerry Kirkpatrick reports, Michael Jordan has a few exciting opportunities as well.
He's been everywhere and done everything. I think that's kind of the downside to living that life. 35 years old and you've done everything. You've had everything. Anything money can buy, anywhere you can go. What do you do?
Or, put another way, in an old question but a new context, what does life now have for the icon who has everything?
I think the real challenge for him will be to take his business sense and turn his business ventures into the best of whatever they can be.
Clearly, this is not a guy who was made to sit in a boardroom all day, making decisions and going over contracts and making long-range plans. The beauty of Jordan as a businessman is he's got the greatest product in the world. It's Michael Jordan.
I think he's now beginning to say, I want to compete with Bill Gates. You know, I want to compete with General Electric. I want to compete with Ford and GM.
He'd be good at whatever he wanted to do. I mean, if the parts were tailored to him, there's no reason why he couldn't be a major player in movies. I mean, look at Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I always thought Jordan would be a great James Bond. I mean, Michael Jordan is James Bond.
If he would ever decide to focus on golf to a level where he was working at it, there's no telling how good he could become.
You know, maybe the music industry, because he loves music, loves jazz, you know, maybe, you know, have a record label or something of that sort.
We walked into the Senate floor, and here was Michael standing at the majority leader's desk. And I thought to myself then, well, maybe will he be a senator someday?
I said to him, do you think you ever could run for president? Figuring he would just laugh and say, of course not. And he said, yeah, he could imagine doing it.
Michael, for the most part, has led a life of high-profile celebrity and kind of quiet dignity. I think his obligation is to, in fact, use his celebrity to help people.
Multinational corporations, blockbuster movies, prime political plums. Michael Jordan can probably pick or choose where he works next, but he probably won't be working here at Whitey's Alberta Motor Inn in Wilmington, North Carolina. Taking out the trash, sweeping the sidewalks, mowing the lawn. It was a long time ago, but Michael's been here, done that. Unfortunately, all that work didn't work out.
Dolores called me up one day and she said, Whitey, do you have anything that Michael can do? Said he needs to do a little work because he's out of high school and going to college. and he needs a job.
I says, well, what happened at work today? He says, Mother, please don't make me go back. I was so embarrassed because my friends was driving by and honking at me while I was sweeping the food.
And we interrupt the Michael Jordan package because he's approaching the podium right now at the United Center to make his retirement announcement and make it official. We return now to Chicago and Dan Patrick.
Michael Jordan has just walked in with his wife, Juanita, the Commissioner David Stern, the Bulls owner, Jerry Reinsdorf. As a packed house here at the United Center
Jerry
from a
Krause
media
also,
standpoint.
yeah.
Jerry Krause, the Bulls GM, is also here. Dick
from
Ebersol, the NBC president.
And a couple of his bodyguards. You know, one of them who had been stricken, very sick, has recovered and is back now and is working with Michael again. Fred Whitfield from Nike, Howard White from Nike, a number of the people who've been friends with Michael over the years. Aaron Patton, also from Nike, is here today.
So 10 scoring titles, 6 NBA titles, 5 MVPs, and now 2 retirement speeches. This is Tim Hallam at the podium. He is the Bulls Director of Public Relations, informing the media that there will be questions that you can ask Michael and the rest of the folks on the dais when this is over.
Well, we do this again. This is the second time. I was telling my wife coming down, I felt like I was getting married, you know. But I guess the first and foremost thing that I want to do, and I think everybody here and today is not just a day for Michael Jordan. I think it's a lot of other serious things happening in the world, and I think I wanted to take time out to, from my family and hopefully from you guys, to give condolences to the officer that was killed in action, who so happened to have his funeral presentations today at the same time, which is, you know, kind of unfortunate. And I think that puts a lot of things in perspective in terms of what life is really about. You know, my responsibility has been to play the game of basketball and relieve some of the pressures of everyday life, you know, for people who have worked from 9 to 5, and I've tried to do that with the best of my abilities. But I think what's happening with his family and certainly unfortunate circumstances that happened, I'd like to pass on my condolences from my family to his, and I'm pretty sure you guys mean the same thing. I am here to announce my retirement from the game of basketball. It won't be another announcement to baseball or anything to that nature. I think everyone has their own reasoning. There's been a lot of speculations in terms of why. I'm pretty sure I get to that point once you guys get the opportunity to ask questions. But I want to say thank you to both of the gentlemen here, Mr. Stern and Mr. Reinsdorf, for presenting me with the opportunity to play the game of basketball, and certainly giving me an opportunity to come to Chicago and meet my beautiful wife and build a family here, and my family in North Carolina, a lot of my friends who have come up to support this day and support me, who have always supported me once I stepped on the basketball court, and even when I didn't play on the basketball court. I want to say thanks to both of those gentlemen and to all the fans in Chicago for allowing me to come here, and they have adapted me to be one of theirs, and responsive. I tried to step on the basketball court and get rid of the gangster mentality that Chicago was known for a long time. And I think successfully myself and my teammates and the whole organization has made an effort to change the perspective about Chicago. And we are hopefully going to be known as a championship city. And I hope it continues on even when Michael Jordan's not in uniform. I will support Chicago Bulls. I think the game itself is a lot bigger than Michael Jordan. I've been given an opportunity by people before me, to name a few: Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Dr. J, Elgin Baylor, Jerry West. These guys have, played the game way before Michael Jordan was born. And Michael Jordan came on the heels of all that activity, and with Mr. Stern and what he's done for the league, and gave me an opportunity to play the game of basketball. And I played it to the best that I could play it, and tried to enhance the game itself. I've tried to be the best basketball player I could be, and next thing you know, here we are as a league. And I think the league is going to continue on, although we've had our troubles over the last 6 months. I think that's a reality check for all of us, that it is a business, but yet it's still fun. It's still a game, and the game will continue on. Once again, I've had a great time, you know, and I can't say enough for the people who have supported me. And you know, my life will take a change. And a lot of people say, well, Michael Jordan didn't have any challenges away from the game of basketball. Well, I dispute that. You know, being a parent is very challenging. If you have kids, you know that. You know, and I welcome that challenge, and I look forward to it. And you know, I will live vicariously through my kids as they play the game of basketball. If they don't, you know, I will support that. You know, my wife and I would do the same. You know, we would do what we can as parents to make sure that happens. And you know, that's the challenge that I have in front of me, and I look forward to that. You know, unfortunately, my mother and my family, my brothers and sisters could not be here. But as you see me, you see them. You know, my father, my mother, and certainly my brothers and sisters. So they are here through me, and they once, along with myself, say thank you for taking me in and showing me the respect and certainly the gratitude that you've shown me over the years that I've been here. I will be in Chicago for my career, hopefully, for the rest of my life. My wife won't allow me to move nowhere else. So I will be in Chicago, and I will support Chicago teams. You know, and you know, that's all I really truly had to say. You know, I thought about saying just 2 words, I'm gone, but I figured I owe the fans and certainly the media a little bit more than that. So that's one of my reasons for being here. And I guess Jerry wants to speak first before David, and I'll pass it over to Jerry.
Well, this is a day that I think I hoped would never come. It has to be the toughest day in the history of the Chicago Bulls. It's a tough day for Chicago. It's a tough day for the NBA. It's a tough day for basketball fans all over the world, and for Michael Jordan fans all over the world. Standing here in the United Center, where Michael Jordan has given us so many wonderful moments, performances, and championships, it's hard to imagine games being played here without him. Michael is simply the best player who ever put on a basketball uniform. He has defined the Bulls, the city, and the NBA for more than a decade. He will always represent the standard of excellence. His statue out in front of the building will greet everybody who ever enters this building again. When Michael retired in 1993, we retired his number 23 and hung it in a position of prominence from the rafters. When Michael came back from baseball, he asked me to take it down. He felt funny about playing when his number was hanging up above, and so we took it down. Today, Michael, we are returning your number 23 to its rightful place of honor, where it will forever serve as a reminder of your dominance on this court and your dominance of this game. Somebody will... There we go. And someday, Michael, the White Sox might retire 45. And to my leader, David Stern, the truth is that for what Michael has meant to the NBA, this number could very well be retired in every arena in the league. Certainly, we in Chicago think that anybody who wears number 23 with a basketball uniform would look like a pretender. Finally, Michael, I have one thing to present to you. For the last season, for the last game, for the last shot, I would like to present to you the 1998 World's Championship ring, which certainly means a lot to all of us. Where is it? So, Michael, thank you very much for what you have meant to all of the world. There'll never be another one like you.
Jerry, Michael, would you get in front of the banner so we can get a
Michael, I get to say thank you for 29 teams and hundreds of millions of fans around the world. Thank you for what you've meant to our game. Thank you for being who you were, not only for your leadership and greatness on the court, but for who you were and will continue to be off the court. Your contributions to the NBA are immeasurable, despite the fact that every newspaper in the country has an insert to detail those today, and every network has a series of programs to do it. I don't think they could ever capture all that you've meant to us. Thank you for gracing our court for 13 seasons, and I disagree with Jerry. This is not a sad day. This is a great day, because the greatest basketball player in the history of the game is getting the opportunity to retire with the grace that described his play. So to you and to Juanita and to the challenge that you define of parenthood, I wish you nothing but continued success and hope that you continue to have the good health that goes with it. Thank you very much.
Okay, we'd like to attempt to do the question and answer session in an orderly fashion. We've got 4 microphones out in the crowd here. If those of you holding the microphone could raise your hand so we can at least... Oh, I see, okay.
Over here. Michael, when did you decide to retire, and why did you wait until today to announce it?
Maybe I'm not supposed to answer that question, but actually, I talked to Jerry last year once the season ended, and I told Jerry at that time that you know, mentally I was a little exhausted. I didn't know if I would play next year. I wanted to put him on awareness so that he could possibly prepare going into next season. And Jerry, once we had our conversation, you know, wanted me to take time, as I did in '93, to make sure that it was the right decision, because it was going to be the final decision. And he encouraged me to wait until the time came to where I made that announcement. And in the middle of that process, you know, with the lockout, I wanted to support the players. You know, I wanted to be there and voice some of the opinions of some of the players and give my input, because I felt it as an obligation to the players of tomorrow, just as the players before me have stood up and supported the collective bargaining agreement for me to utilize in my negotiations. I felt obligated to do the same. And so when the lockout ended, I felt appropriate to, at this particular time, announce my retirement, so that it could give the Bulls an opportunity to do what they have to do in terms of getting their future on and utilizing the financial gains of my contract being renounced or terminated to where they can rebuild or build another structure amongst the team. So that's one of the reasons that I waited until this point.
You compare the reasons for your retirement, feeling about it, to the last time you retired, and why you're so certain this role in it for you?
Well, it's very similar. You know, mentally, I'm exhausted. I don't feel I have a challenge. Physically, I feel great. The last time in '83, I had other agendas. You know, I knew I wanted to play baseball, and I felt that at my age, it was a good opportunity, time to do it. And you know, with the death of my father, and I was basically trying to deal with that. And this time, I'm at peace with a lot of those things. I know, you know, from a career standpoint, I've accomplished everything I could as an individual. And right now, I don't have the mental challenges that I've had in the past to proceed as a basketball player. Sure, I'm pretty sure people say, well, it's a lot of different challenges that could evolve. And you know, for me, to start something and then in the middle of the season lose interest and lose my motivation. It's unfair to the people that I'm working with and working for and to the fans. So I alleviated that opportunity by saying, you know, this is the perfect time for me to walk away from the game, and I'm at peace with that. And unfortunately, we've had some problems in the collective bargaining agreement, but you know, I think those situations have solved, and we have to get past that. I don't know if you guys have heard that question, but I think I could restate it. The question was although the differences between myself and management was not the same, and did that have any impact in my decision? Plus, if Phil Jackson would have been the coach, would I have played on? You know, that's a big if. You know, I retired the first time when Phil Jackson was the coach, and I think that even with Phil the coach, I would have had a tough time mentally finding a challenge for myself, although he could somehow present challenges for me. You know, I don't know if he could have presented a challenge for me to continue on with this season, even though, you know, midway in the season I wanted to continue to play a couple more years, but at the end of the season I was mentally drained and tired, and so I can't really say that he would have restored that. In terms of my disagreements with the management about some of the decision making, you know, that's always been my opinions. It hadn't been, you know, ultimatums or, you know, twisting their arms. You know, the good thing about an organization, the good thing about any team, you may have disagreements, but that doesn't mean, you know, the focus is not there in terms of trying to achieve what you're trying to achieve. Management may take a different approach in terms of rebuilding and whatever, and that's their prerogative. I would never say that that's wrong. You know, that's their prerogative to make that statement or make that notion to do that. And I support them even though I'm not playing. But a matter of different opinions, I don't think would have changed my mind in terms of my retirement at this stage of you know, going into the next year. It was difficult because you're giving up something that you truly, truly love. And my love for the game is very strong, and it's hard to give up that love. But for the sake of, you know, the mental challenges that Michael Jordan needs to drive himself to be the best basketball player he can be, you know, I don't want to fool myself going into a situation knowing that I'm not 100%, you know, challenged mentally. You know, physically I feel fine. You know, with the unfortunate thing with my finger, but other than that, I'm fine, and you know, but mentally, I just felt like I didn't have the challenges in front of me.
Michael, I guess the question a lot of people around town want to know is, what do you see next for the Bulls? How do you see them competing this year, and do you think that they could possibly carry on the legacy that you established of being one of the premier, the elite teams in the league?
Well, I think it presents a challenge for them, you know, to live up to the standards that we have brought here in the city of Chicago. I think it's part of the challenge for Jerry Krause and Jerry Reinsdorf and Tim Floyd to maintain that. And I think they welcome that challenge, and that's good. And it depends on how they take that in action. You know, I don't know what decisions they're going to make in terms of free agency, or I like to see them keep Scottie Pippen around and give him the just due that he's very deserving, but that's just my opinion once again. But we set high standards here, and the pressure's on them to maintain that. Now, how long would that last? Will it be next year? I think, you know, that's hard for me to say, you know, but I'm pretty sure they got to live with that as they move further, you know, and I'm pretty sure they want that to happen. They want to live up to the standards, and that's a part of the challenge, and I support that.
Mike, I got two questions. The first one, I want you to tell me whether the second three-peat was more precious than the first. And second question is, are you leaving with absolutely no more desire to play?
Lacey, you're great. I like you, Lacey. The second three-peat, by far, is the one that you have to cherish the most because it's the hardest. I felt it was the hardest to achieve. Especially when the team was dismantled to some degree and then brought back with different talent, players from programs that never really experienced with the expectations that we had experienced with here in Chicago, and we, and I felt it was harder, and we overcame that, and we won 3 in a row. So I would say that's better than the first 3. Now, which team is better? I would think the first team is the better of the second team that won 3 in a row. But it was definitely harder to win the second 3 in a row than the first 3. In terms of desire is always going to be there. If the desire is not there, the love was never there. But I have to make a judgment in terms of the desire. All the time I step on the basketball court, not 1/4 of the time, but every time I step on the basketball court. And I can't honestly say that's going to be there every time I step into this building for 82 games or 100 and some games that we play in the course of the year. And I've always been sure about that, and now I'm unsure about that. So with that doubt, I choose to make my own decisions about retirement.
Michael, is this a true story that you came back? One reason that you came back was because your son Jeffrey told you that Shaquille O'Neal was the greatest basketball player. And if it is true, if you have another child, might you come back again?
No, that's not true, but my middle kid loves Dennis Rodman. He wants red hair, so I mean, I don't think that's going to drive me back, but that is not a true statement, and I'm not against my kids idolizing other people, because that means they see me as their father, and they really don't see me as the basketball player, and that means my wife and I doing our jobs in terms of being the great parent that we have to be. So if they see other players as being, their idols, I don't have a problem with that. Just no red hair in my household.
Michael, which were you more proud of, your athletic skills or the mental skills that you brought to the game, and which was more difficult to keep up?
Well, I came in here with the physical skills. I was, to some degree, I was born with the appetite to enhance it as I got older and as I played the game. But the mental skills came with the education of the game, that either I learned from Coach Smith before I got here, or I learned in the course of the coaching staffs that I've been endured with. Tex Winter probably being the most, because he was probably the one that would criticize my game more than anybody, and to me that's a plus. That's a driving force for me. But the mental part is hard because you have to really learn, taking everything that you've learned over a period of time and apply that to your game and tie that into the physical aspect to your game and make the complete basketball player that you try to become. So physically it's a little bit easier, but the mental part is the hardest part, and I think that's the part that separates the good players from the great players.
Michael, is there any chance whatsoever that you'll change your mind somewhere down the road and return?
No. I never say never, but 95, 99.9%, I'm very secure with my decision.
Michael, we heard Jerry Reinsdorf say this was a sad day. We heard David Stern say it was a happy day. What are you thinking? What kind of emotions do you have as you make this announcement? Are you mixed about it? Have you been overcome yet? What's going on inside?
It's tough. I'm doing a good job trying to hold back the emotions, because it's like taking away something that I truly have loved for the last, I started when I was 12 years old. Now I'm 36 next month, so 24 years I've been playing the game, and it's part of both. It's sad that I have to, that I'm leaving the game, but it's happy because my life is starting to go into a whole nother stage. Basketball, for me, was the first stage. It got me to this point in my life, and, I knew it had to end. My life takes on a different stage now, and it's a different challenge, and I welcome that, and I knew it was coming. So I'm happy that it's gotten to this point. I'm happy that you guys didn't run me out of the game. I chose to walk away knowing that I can still play the game, And that's what I've always wished, for, you know, for my career to end. You know, that's exactly the way I wanted to end it. Excuse me? The next step is, you know, it's a lot of different components. You know, I enjoy taking my kids to school, which I did that this morning. I'm gonna enjoy picking my kids up from school, which I look forward to doing, and watching my kids play. My wife and I have a fun time watching our kids play one-on-one, which is very entertaining. You know, so those are things that seem so simple in a lot of people's lives and never really been enjoyed by me because of my schedule and because of the things that I've done over the last 14 years. And now I get to dissect some of those simple things to enjoy, you know, and I look forward to that. And sure, there's a lot of business opportunities there, and that won't consume it, but that certainly will take away some of the competitive juices that will be left over from not playing basketball. But for the most part, I'm just going to enjoy life and do some of the things that I've never done before.
Michael, two questions like Lacey. Is there a record that you wish you could get that you can't get now that you're not playing? And two, are you worried about the spirit of the young players in the game?
No, it's not a record that I didn't get that I would love to have gotten. I mean, I'm pretty sure people would say I'd like to lead the history, score the most points in the history of the game. But that I'd rather give up that to get 6 titles. You know, so it's a compensation there. In terms of the youth of the game, I think that we really have to be very patient with them and apply more guidance to them to still enjoy the game and play the game with a lot of energy. The unfortunate thing, either myself or some of the other players before me has brought more to focus is the financial aspect of the game. I think that's going to have to dissipate a little bit and get more back to the love of the game. The love of the game is what you do on the basketball court. And I'm pretty sure that David wants that to happen. I'm pretty sure every owner wants that to happen. But no matter what happens, in this business of basketball, if you didn't get paid a dime, you still would play the game of basketball somewhere. And that love has to be illustrated in the way that you play the game and the way that you carry yourself on and off the court. And I think that's something that we all, as athletes, not just professional basketball players, but all professional athletes have to take into account when they're stepping out in the public's eye.
Michael, you've had so many thrills in your career, and you've provided so many highlights and thrills for everyone. From college all the way to that last shot against the Jazz in Game 6 last June, could you perhaps point out one or two of them that really stick out in your mind that just stands above the rest?
Well, the first and last shot, those are two that you just can't erase because it started and ended my career to some degree. The year we got past the Pistons, because I was getting over the hump. We got to the hump, but we never really could get over the hump. I think the year that we beat Cleveland, when no one thought we could beat Cleveland, and I think that gave the city, or got the city behind the Chicago Bulls, that if you put your mind to something, you can accomplish what you believe in. And a lot of people didn't give us a chance. And we went out and we beat Cleveland. And I think that showed to the public here in Chicago that, either you're with us or not. We got to make a change here in the Chicago Bulls organization. And we're going to have to do it with the belief starting within and then hopefully extending outside of that. And I think that was a major step into that whole thought process. Not right now. I can't say I would never say never. But I want to get away from basketball a little bit. And look at it from afar. And if the interest evolves somewhere down the road, it's fine. I wouldn't mind that. But right now, the only coaching I can do is at home, and I'm having a tough time doing that. But I'd rather get away from the game a little bit.
Michael, you said you'd only play for Phil Jackson. Hypothetically, if Phil Jackson ended up somewhere else, let's say Madison Square Garden, would you ever play for Phil again?
You know, that's not even envisioned in my mind right now. You know, and you know, so I don't think that's going to happen. I'm pretty sure that's not going to happen. And if Phil ends up in New York, I'm happy for Phil. But although I love New York, I can't see myself coming out of retirement and playing in New York. No, but it kind of looked that way. Up to that point, all my shots were short because I was getting tired. And I guess the lessons that you learn over the years is that, you know, stick with the shot a little longer, make sure you get that extra little bit. And that was my thinking, was to make sure that I extend and go through the necessary fundamentals to get the ball to the basket. Turned out to look as if, you know, I was posing for all the photographers, but, you know, that was not the case. Well, the most unfortunate thing, it was an accident trying to cut a cigar. And I suffered a tendon, which I have to have surgery on in the next couple of weeks. Hopefully it doesn't alter my golf game, but my decision was made before this happened. And if, you know, from what doctors have told me, that even if I chose to play, I wouldn't be able to play for 2 months. You know, but that never had any factors in terms of my decision.
You've been able to transcend geographical, racial, social barriers. With your stature and respect, you go into seclusion now, or do you try to maybe solve some of the world's problems?
Well, it's two big no's. I don't think I can go in seclusion. And certainly I can't solve the world's problems. There's a lot of problems out there. There's a lot of things that I can lend my support to. I will do that. Seclusion is, you know, for me, will back away from the public eye to some degree. Still have obligations with endorsements that will require me to be in the public's forefront for a little while. But so, you know, I would be hopefully I'll be on a minor scale in terms of. I will still be doing commercials. That's simple. But I can't save the world by no means.
Michael, as someone who's created motivation for himself in a lot of different instances, do you look at all the people surrounding you telling you that you couldn't give the game up as, I don't know, maybe some motivation to give it up?
No. I just, when I heard people saying that they didn't know Michael Jordan, I mean, and it's mostly speculation, and I try not to let that influence my decision in terms of what I know what's best for Michael Jordan. And conversating with my wife and my friends, and, you know, once I get feedback from them, I make my own decision, not based on what I read or what I hear. You know, there was a lot of speculation that was totally untrue, but, you know, I'm pretty sure people had a chance to read it and enjoy it, but it didn't influence my decisions by no means.
Michael, last time you used the terminology not slamming the door shut. You're not using it this time either with the 99.9. Does that mean you're still not slamming it shut? And also, now that you got your ring, will you still show up the night of the ring ceremony here?
Well, that's what I asked Jared, if there was going to be a ring ceremony night. And, you know, I'd love to still come and support the rest of the players and see some of the players that may not be here. But, you know, so I look forward to doing that if that happens. 99.9 says as you read it, you know, it's not really 100%, but it's close. You know, so, you know, that's where I stand. I'm not going to say never, you know. Say 99.9, and you take it as what it's worth. It's never going to be another Michael Jordan. It's never going to be another Dr. J. I knew that. It was never going to be another Elgin Baylor. I knew that. So the kids of tomorrow, it's never going to be another Michael Jordan. You know, it can be a Grant Hill, it can be Anthony Hardaway, it can be Kobe Bryant. But Michael Jordan is Michael Jordan. And you may pick bits and pieces of his game or his personality, and somehow correlated to yours. But either way, you have to evolve to be the person that you are. Sure, that you're going to use comparisons as a standard of measurement. Yes, that happens. But it's different circumstances that you have to deal with, you know, in each era. You know, I didn't have the same things facing me as Dr. J had in his era. And I'm pretty sure Kobe and some of the guys who come behind me is not going to have the same. You know, so they have to evolve to be the players that they are, or they're going to be, with maybe my influences and other influences. But you're right, it's not going to be another Michael Jordan, and I wouldn't advise the other guys to try to be that or do that.
You've talked so much about all the positives and everything regarding your career. During your career, what was the most difficult things for you to go through?
Losing early on. And I guess it's part of losing that you had to change your game to the criticisms that you were receiving. Well, Michael Jordan doesn't make his basketball, his players around him better. And there was some truth to that, you know, because I didn't really know how, and I had to learn to do that. So that was a challenge, but yet it was a negative towards Michael Jordan, and I used that negative as a positive. You know, there's a lot of negative things that happened to me in my life, you know, within the game of basketball and outside basketball. But I've always been able to take that negative and turn it into a positive as a learning experience, but yet, you know, move forward from. And I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't change any of the lessons that I've learned from the negative and the positive, because I think that helped me evolve to be the person that I am. But it was a lot of negative things that enhance, you know, me as a person and as a player.
Michael, did you anticipate the lockout taking this long, and did you think the agreement was fair?
I didn't anticipate it being this long. I think the players were willing to sit out for the best deal that they felt was fair. And I'm in favor of what the majority says. You know, if the players and everyone feel this is a fair deal, I'm happy. I always felt, and I've said it even before, in the last collective bargaining agreement, I can be pleased under any collective bargaining agreement, but the majority has to be pleased with the collective bargaining agreement. And it's very evident that they were. Patrick Ewing and the whole negotiating team, as well as myself, when I tried to contribute, we were fighting for the best deal that the majority would accept. And majority accepted. In terms of fairness, we'll see. You know, we see how the things happen and see if, you know, some of the awareness or some of the things that the owners wanted to address is addressed, but yet the players, what they felt were sticking points are still addressed, and it turns out to be a fair deal for the game. I'm happy with that. That's all I ever wanted, you know, from both sides.
Michael, it's going to be difficult for the Bulls to get back to where it was with you not being there. At some point in the future, could you see yourself reconciling yourself as to being part of the club as far as helping them out marketing or helping them to rebuild this club at any point in the future?
I'm not against that. I think, but the best way to survive without Michael Jordan is, you know, somehow start to live without him, you know, in some respects. And I'm always going to support the Chicago Bulls because it's given me, you know, a great joy to be a part of the organization. But life without Michael Jordan somehow has to be, and sometimes has to be, without Michael Jordan's input, you know. And, you know, but I will, you know, if need be, if they need my support in anything, I will certainly consider that and would lend my 2 cents to it.
Michael, I would assume that you would say the sacrifices that you had to go through in terms of everything, sacrifices of privacy and things like that, were worth it on some level because of the success you've had. But are there any things that you had to give up that at all bother you, or do you have resentment toward? And also, what do you think the future life will be in terms of public versus private? Will you?
Well, I mean, it's a lot of things about my lifestyle that I truly don't like, you know, but I've come to accept because I've stepped into the form that I have to deal with it. You know, there's so much speculation about things that are totally untrue, but you have to deal with it, and you have to let it roll off the back and deal with it. And you learn not to bring it too much to focus because, you know, it's not worth the headache. But hopefully that would subside some as I step away from the spotlight. May not, but I have to deal with it in whatever respects. And you know, that's one of the unfortunate things that a celebrity has to deal with is the speculations and some of the untrue things that have been that are printed about them. And it's unfair, but it's a part of the whole picture, I guess, to some degree. I like that, Bill, because I talked to Patrick, I talked to Charles, I talked to Carl, I talked to all of them, and I'm pretty sure they feel the same. They all wanted me to come back just so that if they win a championship, they can say they had gone through Chicago or Michael Jordan to win it, to give it the meaning that it, of taking a title away from Chicago. And that's the good thing about it, that they will never have the chance to say that. That's what I was so glad that Magic played and Bird played when I won my titles, because now, I had to go through, to some degree, Boston and L.A. Patrick, I don't know. He won't be able to live with himself if he can't beat Michael Jordan in a series. And Charles Barkley, I told, would never win because he doesn't dedicate himself to winning. But, all of them joked with me and hated to see the possibility of me retiring just because, they didn't have an opportunity to beat me in the finals or get past me. And that is a cute thing about retiring. And I would always hold that in high respect when I see these guys socially.
We're going to go with 3 more questions.
Juanita, what are your feelings about the retirement? How's this going to change your life?
Actually, my life won't change at all. I see Michael doing more carpooling. That's about it.
None. None. Phil and I, we talked all season long about, what the possibilities may be at the end of the season. And once he made his decision, he didn't want his decisions to influence mine, and I said it wouldn't. And I didn't want my decision to influence you. Sure, I'm saying that I would rather play for Phil Jackson if he's here. But that's just my opinion. But that doesn't tell me, or that shouldn't have you make the best decision suited for Phil Jackson, because that's the first and foremost for me, is to make sure that you're happy. And he didn't have any influence in terms of what he didn't even know. I haven't talked to Phil since somewhere midway in the summer. And if the season would have started in October, I would pretty sure that I would have made the same decision. I don't think that changed by doing it now.
Michael, one last time for the record, why do you have to walk out of here with that 1% in your pocket?
Because it's my 1% and not yours. That's why.
Michael used to consult with your father throughout your life about so many important decisions. If he were here today, what type of advice do you think he would have given you about making this choice?
I think it wouldn't have been any different than what I said. What you see from me is what you see from, he would have done the same thing. He probably would have loved to answer questions before I would have answered the questions, but, he would have probably told me this is the perfect time. The writing's on the wall. Take it and walk away with it with your head held high, and, and enjoy your kids and move on. And so it doesn't differ from what I'm doing. My second father, Gus, said the same thing. Wherever Gus is, he's been saying the same thing for a while. I guess he just liked to get out of Chicago from the warm weather. So So it's no different than what's happened. My father would basically give me the same advice, and my mother basically did. So.
Michael, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chicago.
Jerry.
Yeah, David.
It shouldn't come as a surprise, but there's still the element of shock. Michael Jordan isn't playing basketball anymore. But David, 99.9%. Why did he say 99.9%?
I thought the answer was very appropriate. It's his 0.5%, not anybody else's. If he wants to leave his options open for the future, he should have the right to do so and not close any doors just to make us happy or anybody else. He has that right.
Mixed emotions. He said he was trying to hold it in. David Stern, the commissioner, said it should be a happy day. Michael's going out on top. Jerry Reinsdorf gave the obvious opinion that, hey, it's a sad day in more ways than one for him. What do you think's coursing through Michael?
Well, I think there's sadness. I mean, I think that, this is a life. I mean, this is a life that he has built through his own sweat and intelligence and hard work and determination. And anytime you walk away from something that not only do you love, but that you've been extraordinarily successful at, there's obviously got to be some sadness. But I think for a guy who loves challenges, who loves the next thing out there, this is kind of also an open book now. I mean, he can really write the next chapter in his life, whatever he wants it to be. If he wants to be a public person and talking about issues and doing things, he can do that. If he wants to become a very private person and be with his family, he can do that. So I think that's good for him.
Well, he's going to try to be private. You asked him the question about what did you give up to become who you are, and how can you live a normal life? I guess what we would view as a normal life.
Yeah, and I don't think he's ever going to really get to be normal, probably. I mean, I think that in some ways the intensity may wear off a little bit, but he's always going to be Michael Jordan for most people, and I think much like you see Ali in his later years, there's still that reverence, I think, associated with him. Then I think you'll see a lot of that with Michael Jordan.
Let's look at the future of the Bulls now. Now it's reality. Now most of these free agents know they won't be back. So let's go down. Let's start with Scottie Pippen, and let's look at what's going to happen.
Well, I think Scottie Pippen is obviously the top free agent in play right now. Even though he's a little older than, say, an Antonio McDyess or a Tom Gugliotta, I think teams that feel like they're close are going to go with Scottie Pippen a lot, go very hard on him. Obviously, Houston has a lot of cap room. They're going to make a play for him. I think the Lakers are going to make a play for him. And a couple of teams that might surprise will make a play for him. But Scottie can go pretty much where he wants to go. The money is going to be about the same no matter where he goes.
So it's the domino effect. If you don't have Scottie back, then you're basically saying we can't win a title. We're not going to challenge for a title. Is Dennis Rodman going to play basketball anymore?
Dennis always at this time of the year before the season starts wants to retire. And then he gets, he sees everybody else getting ready for the season. And he's done this the last 5 or 6 years. He's I'm retiring. I think Dennis will play again. I think Dennis likes playing basketball. I think it's something that he takes great pride in, competing with younger guys. And I think he also, though, wants to go to a team that's going to be contending for a championship. So he's not going to go just anywhere. He's going to have a very short list of teams that he wants to play for.
But the problem with Dennis is that he's criticized a lot of the big-name guys. He's criticized Patrick Ewing, so he can't go to New York. He's criticized Shaq. He can't go to L.A.
Well, I don't know about that. I'll tell you this. The Knicks have contacted Dwight Manley, his agent, and inquired as to what Dennis is looking for. They haven't made him an offer, per se, but they've said, hey, if Dennis wanted to play, how would we do it? How would we work it out? So I think all the teams that say we can't play, look, if Scottie Pippen can play with Dennis Rodman after everything they went through, then anybody else in this league can play with him.
All right. Our coverage will continue here from the United Center. And a reminder that we have Carlos Diaz, our Chicago-based reporter. He is down on the floor. We will provide the interviews when they become available. For David Aldridge, I'm Dan Patrick. Our coverage from the United Center of Michael Jordan's retirement press conference continues.
And welcome back to ESPN's continuing coverage of Michael Jordan's retirement announcement. We will return to Dan Patrick in Chicago in just a moment, but for now we continue with news here from Bristol. I'm Chris McHenry. So it's one thing to be posterized in the NBA, but poor Brian Russell, the Jazz defender assigned to Michael Jordan in those closing moments of Game 6 against the Jazz in the finals last spring. Jordan beat him for the winning shot, now the final shot of MJ's career. Jordan finished that game with 45 points and another shiny title. He leaves on top, as it should be, says his teammate Scottie Pippen.
I think that the timing for it is right, right now that, he's on top of his career and, the season is pretty much cut in half. It's kind of hard, to be able to get yourself ready to play right now. I'm very happy for him. I'm happy for what he's been able to accomplish in his career, and I'm happy to see that he's able to go out on top. I'm going to put everything on the table, and, I'm Chicago's product to lose. So if they don't give me the best offer, then I'm probably out of here.
This year, that's been the NBA's preseason. Players trying to work out, negotiate, and get new deals in a matter of weeks as the regular season opens February 5th. However, Michael Jordan's announcement did slow that frantic pace to a crawl. MJ's peers react to his retirement.
People really didn't want to believe a man could actually fly, and he gave everyone that belief that for a little bit, maybe they could. You're going to miss facing the Bulls with him, knowing that it's showtime.
He made me want to be an NBA basketball player. And, just to tell him, thanks for everything he brought to the game and open the door up for the rest of the players.
He's undoubtedly the greatest player in the game. We're going to miss him. And I could tell all my 10 children from 9 different women that I played against the great Michael Jordan. I thought Jesus never will retire, I know Jesus worked 7 days a week, or 6 days. He rested on Sunday, didn't he? Well, Michael Jordan played on Sunday.
He does so much for younger guys like myself. You want to strive to beat the best. Now the best is leaving, so you still have to get pumped up in some kind of way and see which next person can come over and try to take over his reign.
He's doing what he wants to do. If that's what he wants to do, my respects go to him. He had a great career. Now it's time for me to move on.
Not being able to see him play again, it's going to be a little sad. It's like when Magic retired for the first time, and you knew that you never was going to see the no-look pass. I know that we're never going to see Jordan flying through the air dunking, and that's a little sad.
It's a sad day, really. He's the best player to ever play in this game, and we're definitely going to miss him.
It's been a blessing playing against a guy like that, and when I have children, and I can show them tapes of telling them this is the best player who ever touched the basketball, and he's going to be very well missed.
When you step on the court, Mike, you was like, it's Michael Jordan, the best. You try to go out there and play good. You just want to beat him, no matter what. So you say you beat the best player ever. That's the way to end your career, on a sweet jumper to win the championship. That's a storybook ending.
Well, as Michael Jordan said this morning, it's a game and the game will continue. And there was a game before him, although it was different. The year before Michael Jordan arrived in Chicago, the Bulls averaged a little more than 6,000 fans per game. By his third season, the Bulls began a run of 542 straight sellouts at Chicago Stadium and the United Center. Both facilities seat more than 20,000 people. Well, Bob Stevens reports on the numbers behind the rise in the attendance figure.
1. Jordan's the only guard to win the NBA scoring title and championship trophy in the same season. 2. Home courts. Jordan averaged 32.7 a game at the old Chicago Stadium and won 78% of his games there. At the United Center, he scored a little less but enjoyed it more. 28.2 points, but 93% wins. 3. Jordan led the league in steals 3 times and retires third on the all-time steals list, just 4 behind Maurice Cheeks. 4. Players among the NBA's all-time top 50 who don't have rings because of Jordan. He's won all 5 playoff series against Patrick Ewing, is 3-0 against Sir Charles, and of course, 2-0 against Stockton and Malone. 7. That's all the non-retirement games Jordan missed since the broken foot that cost him most of the 85-86 season. Michael retires with a 287-game Ironman streak, the 3rd longest current run. 8. On March 22nd, 1986, ironically against the Cavaliers that he would later torment for years, Jordan scored only 8 points. the only time in his 930 regular season games he was held under double digits. The streak concludes at 840 straight. 9. In Jordan's last 9 full seasons, he made the NBA All-Defensive Team. 10. Times Jordan fouled out of a regular season game, but not since November 22nd of 91. He also fouled out 3 times in the playoffs, but never in the 90s. 12. Jordan wore this number once, Valentine's Day of 1990 in Orlando, after his jersey had been stolen. He scored 49 points. 19.6. Yes, Dean Smith was the last guy to hold Jordan under 20 points a game. 19.6, his junior year at Carolina, though he did win the Naismith and Wooden Awards that year. 23. Mike Gratz had it in Chicago before Michael, who came in and led the Bulls in scoring, rebounding, assists, and steals. Only 6 other players have ever done that, and none of them were rookies. 25. Only 2 teams held Michael to an average of under 25 a game in his career, the 2 expansion teams, Vancouver and Toronto. 30. Only 3 NBA players averaged over 30 points in a season after the age of 30. Rick Barry and Jerry West, the other 2, but Jordan was the oldest at 32. 31.5. Jordan's career scoring average at home, and amazingly, his average on the road. 35.9. Jordan's average in his favorite shooting venue, Philly's Old Spectrum, although the Bulls lost 14 of his 21 games there. Milwaukee's Bradley Center and the Boston Garden finished 2nd and 3rd. 5,000. The amount of the fine every game Michael wore his first pair of Air Jordans in violation of the league's uniform regulations. Nike couldn't have bought cheaper advertising. And something you can't put a number on. Remember that final shot? Well, number 23 finished that game with his other favorite number, 45.
Speaking of numbers, Michael's number 23 re-retired earlier today during the press conference. And Jerry Reinsdorf, the Bulls owner, said probably won't have number 45 retired anytime soon. But it's been a day of mixed emotions here. When you heard David Stern, the commissioner, say it should be a happy day. Michael's going out on top. Jerry Reinsdorf, the owner of the Bulls, with the obvious opinion saying it's a sad day because he's losing the marquee talent. And it's a domino effect of what's going to happen here in Chicago. If Michael's gone, Scotty's probably not far behind. Probably Dennis Rodman, Luke Longley, Steve Kerr, the dismantling of the Bulls as we know them. So what does this mean, not only to the Bulls, but also to the NBA? David Aldridge standing by with the commissioner, David Stern. David?
Thanks, Dan. David, obviously you said it was a happy day for you today, but let's well, tell me why you thought it was happy.
It was a happy day for me. I said it was a great day for Michael because he's done extraordinary things for our game. And it's almost storybook for him to have his health, have his skills, and decide that he would like to retire at this point, and having done very well, both financially and the way he wants to live. I think that's something that most people aspire to.
There is obviously no blueprint for how to, years after Jordan. But just generally, do you think the league needs to refocus how it markets individuals as opposed to teams, or do you think it does enough of that now?
Well, it's interesting. We try to market teams and teamwork. This is a celebrity-driven time. When your network focuses on the evening news, it doesn't focus on teams. It focuses on individual plays, and the variety of new shows do that as well. But we'll try to return, I'd say, or push a little bit harder on the team concept. But what will happen is great teams and great stars will emerge. And so I think there is a blueprint because it's the one we've been following for the last 20 years.
How difficult or how much can this league absorb this year, coming off of the lockout and now this?
Well, we're going to find out. But as I said earlier to someone, this is a league that was basically discounted 20 years ago. It was too black. The salaries were too high at $260,000. Its championship series was tape delayed, and it was widely assumed that it would be going out of business. We're dealing from quite a different plateau now with a phalanx of young stars really ready to take their places on I'd say the global stage, because now we're a global sport as well. So we're going to be in fine shape. It may take us a little bit of time to move along, because coming out of a lockout is always a problem, but we're going to ask our fans' indulgence, and hopefully we can win our way back into their good graces.
David, you were in positions of authority and power in this league before Michael came into the league, but the balance of your time of commissioner has coincided with his time in the league. Is there any way to reflect on what he has meant to the league and to you personally?
Well, I was very lucky. When I became commissioner, I mean, we had Dr. J, and I thought that in June you were supposed to be either in Boston or in LA. Okay, remember that in the 80s, and then we went to Detroit, and when Magic and Larry retired, everybody said, oh, the league's over. No one said Michael was going to carry it, but he did. He stepped into the spotlight and did a spectacular job, but with more than a couple of cameos by Akeem Olajuwon and the Houston Rockets. So to me, it was just it's been an extraordinary time for the NBA. And as it relates to Michael, I just would say that we, the number of times that we met so that I could give him his trophy, his car, his MVP for the finals or the playoffs. I used to, he would see me coming and say, okay, here comes my trophy valet, and there I was to crank it up one more time. It was a delight. I'll very much miss that, but I expect to be speaking to Michael next week on sort of a variety of things, because I think he's going to be very much involved in a broad sense. He said that he was going to support the Bulls, and he's going to support the NBA, and I'm going to take him up on that.
David Stern started as a ball boy for the Knicks, watching a lot of basketball. He's seen the best as we all have. Let's go back upstairs to Dan.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Commissioner. I think the overriding buzz here at the United Center is not that Michael's retiring, it's that he said 99.9%. So maybe the media is still in denial on what Michael Jordan's future plans are. He mentioned he turns 36 next month. He said that even if he came back, he wouldn't have been able to play for the first 2 months. He severed a tendon while on a golfing vacation in the Bahamas as he was trying to cut a cigar. You would think that someone of Michael's stature would have somebody cutting his cigar for him. But Michael, for now, will ride off into the sunset. He ends it the way we dream about, hitting the final shot in the final game to take home the trophy. He said that he'll leave the door open a little bit. He didn't slam the door shut back in 1993 when he retired to go play baseball. He said he's not leaving or shutting that door now as he leaves the game. But it appears to be for good. For those who know him, those close to him say that he's tired. He needs to get away from the sport. But you wonder, the true great ones know when it's time to leave. The true great ones also say, I won't come back. We will be back a little bit later on. SportsCenter special 90-minute version coming up at 5:30 Eastern. For all of us here at the United Center, David Aldridge and myself, Dan Patrick, we'll see you later on tonight.